He is a fantastic thinker and writer about this issue of American Marxism and Marxism generally. And he's co-written this book with Catherine Gorka, who's a friend of ours as well, NextGen Marxism, What It Is and How to Combat It. Now, why is this important? Because we're living it. Right now, in the United States of America, you're confronting it. It's swirling around you. It's in the media. It's in the government. It's in Hollywood. It's everywhere. Mike Gonzalez, welcome. Congratulations. This fantastic book, NextGen Marxism. Let's begin. You start out with the revolution. Briefly tell us, what is this revolution? Are we in the middle of it? Has it already taken place? Where are we going with it?
No, we're in the middle. And thank you, Mark, for the things you said. We're in the middle of it. I actually have good feelings. I'm optimistic. I think the American people are going to win because we caught this early enough. But yeah, I mean, in this book, what we did was set out to answer to explore the nagging question that Americans are asking themselves: why is the country becoming unrecognizable? You ask about the revolution. The revolution we see every day in little things that are big things. Why are some teachers pushing gender confusion? Why are some librarians sharing pornography with young students and hiding it from their parents? Why has race once again become the most important factor in promotion and hiring? And why are universities becoming centers of intolerance? And our answer is that because it is a revolution bubbling from within, as it is not by accident. This transformation of America is due to the fact that some very important people agree on some fundamentals. They're sometimes called cultural Marxists. They call themselves critical Marxists. We call them next-gen Marxists because they bring to the equation elements that are traditionally missing in cultural Marxism or in critical theory, such as one of them is the use of neighborhood organizing, of community organizing, as perfected by Saul Alinsky, a very American thing. Also, the use of sex to destroy society from within, destroy the family. Now, as you know, because you've written about this is not quite new. It started, Georg Lukács in the Hungarian Soviet in 1919 used it to destabilize the family. Marcuse used it, talked about it in Eros and Civilization in 1957. But today it's the use of queer theory and gender theory to deny reality, to say that amputations of perfectly reasonable, perfectly healthy organs is gender care, and then and also the use of race, the stoking of racial grievances, to deconstruct society, to dismantle society, and lastly, the new element, this is a 21st century element, is the use of vast networks, Marxist networks that span the globe, and social media to stoke. What we saw in 2020 in the BLM riots was exactly that, a revolutionary outpouring of this cultural Marxism. What we saw in 2014 in Ferguson, Missouri, was another revolutionary spark of this. So what we try to do is expose this and then provide solutions as to how to stave it off, how to help the American people fight back.
Do you see now, I do, a fusion of sort of the Marxists and the Islamists, both of which hate America, Western society, Western values, and now there seems to be this fusion in the universities and colleges, seems to be this fusion in our media, seems to be this fusion in our streets, the river to the sea. Do you see this fusion now because they have a common enemy, which is us?
Yeah, in Europe, this is called the Red-Green Alliance. Let me give you two examples of this very thing that you're talking about. In 2007, world Marxist leaders called for a beachhead of revolution to be set up here inside the U.S. Hugo Chavez in Venezuela called for this in 2006. In what do you know? In 2007, this is established when American Marxists opened the U.S. Social Forum in Atlanta in 2007 with a gathering of thousands of people. By the way, Alicia Garza and Patrisse Cullors, the founders of Black Lives Matter, were there in Atlanta in 2007. This is a decade, not a decade, but many years before they found Black Lives Matter. Who else is there? Gobs of Palestinian activists. They're in Atlanta in 2007. Again, in 2014. I've mentioned before Ferguson, Missouri. When the world Marxists gather, who's there again? A lot of Palestinians. It ends December 2014. The next month, 2015, Patrice Cullors is in the West Bank cutting videos with Palestinians. What you're talking about is definitely happening.
And when we come back, Mike Gonzalez, it's my contention that the Democrat Party is the umbrella organization now for all these entities. And that's why Joe Biden has taken positions that he's taken. That's why Democrats in Congress are moving further radicalized to the left. And that's why their media is so filled with so many radicals. America, you're surrounded by a revolution, whether you know it or not, and it's sucking you in or sucking you down. NextGen Marxism, what it is and how to combat it, by Gonzalez and Gorka. It's a fantastic new book. You can get it at Amazon.com about what's swirling around you. So my question to you is, has the Democrat Party become effectively the beehive for all these movements, whether it's the Marxism or the Palestinian Islamicism?
Well, we're seeing very important decision makers, elements inside the Democratic Party that are definitely that are sympathetic to next-gen Marxism. AOC, definitely Bernie Sanders, the Democratic Socialists, the whole squad. Joe Biden himself, as you said yourself earlier in the earlier segment, was completely absent in this conversation. He was actually sympathized with segregationists, said some really rather racist things in a very, very long career. Now he's realized that the power center in his party belongs to this next-gen Marxists, who are not the majority of the population, nor I would say the majority of his party, but they control it. Nobody dares say no to them, and that I think is something that we discussed in our book. The race and sex have become an obsession with Biden and the Biden administration. He doesn't even say the word equality anymore. He says equity, and every time he says equity, he wants to say equality. But I guess they have so accustomed him to saying equity that he has to get it out.
Now it looks like Obama's back on the scene, which is okay because his staff has been running the White House anyway. So now here he is. He's out of the closet. He's working on the Biden campaign and so forth, as he's been working behind the scenes. And of course, we know his association with Alinsky and his association with others when he was a young man, Marxist. And you write about some of this in the book, too. So having Obama back on the scene, doesn't that kind of underscore what's taking place now?
Well, we devote a chapter to Will Ayers, who was the Marxist terrorist at one point, who actually introduced Obama to the political world of Chicago in very early on in the 1990s. And Obama's mentor, as you know, Mark, because you've written about this, was Frank Marshall Davis, a communist. Obama writes about him in his 2 autobiographies. He just calls him Frank. And he denies that this is Frank Marshall Davis, except there's this video somewhere of an earlier Obama saying, oh, yeah, no, I knew this American poet, Frank Marshall Davis. He was my mentor in Hawaii when I was a teenager. So we know that Frank is Frank Marshall Davis, a hardcore American communist who was friendly with his grandparents. I think, obviously, this begins to happen in 2013, 2014, at a time when Americans of all races were saying they were quite content with racial relations, and then we have the creation of BLM, and this happens under Obama, obviously, he's president. We have the takeoff of BLM, and the American newspapers just begin to speak in these languages, use these terms. There's this guy named Zach Goldberg who's did a piece for the tablet in which he actually is able to study how newspapers, the Wall Street Journal, not the Wall Street Journal so much, the Washington Post and New York Times, begin to use this terminology, systemic racism, white supremacy, and so forth, and just take off using these terms in 2014. So it happens under Obama. I would not say he leads it. I think it's led by people who really are intent on changing America from within. He may have wanted that as well. But these next-gen Marxists at the bottom, Black Lives Matter, the architects are the fighting, the shock troops of this. it's something that happens beginning in that period, yes.
Do you think the Republican Party, or even non-Republicans who look at this, look at you, look at me and say, boy, you guys, you're kind of over the top here and so forth and so on. Do you think the hardcore left in this country has succeeded in mainstreaming their ideology, or at least concealing it?
Yeah, very much so. They actually conceal it behind everything. But, the issue is never the issue. The issue is a revolution. Look, you can be a Keynesian and believe in deficit spending and believe in raising taxes to throttle economic growth without having heard the name John Maynard Keynes. You don't have to have studied Keynes to be a Keynesian. And Keynes himself said that people act the way they do because of the ideas of some defunct philosopher or economist. This is what is happening right now. These ideas are the animating ideas of the left. As I said, the animating ideas of the Democratic Party, of the whole left. They're Marxist. We call them NextGen Marxists. Whether you have studied, whether you think you're a Marxist or not, if you boil down the world to a clash between the oppressor and the oppressed, you're reading from the first page of the manifesto written by Marx in 1848.
Now, that's 100% right. Great point. You don't have to say, hey, I'm a Marxist, when in fact you are unwittingly advancing that cause. Mike Gonzalez, the book is great, NextGen Marxism, what it is and how to combat it. Get it at Amazon.com. If you want to know what's going on in the world, this will tell you. Thank you, my friend. Good luck to you.
Thank you, Mark.